The thing that I must move from my mind quickly is that this is not something that is the result of some other things that I do. That's not what joy is. Happiness can be that. Pleasure can be that. Pain can result from that, but that's not what joy is. You can't command happiness. You can't demand pleasure. But joy, oddly enough, when understood, is one of those things that can be summoned in any situation.
Hello again, everybody. This is Heartbeat, the podcast, featuring ideas and insights from the more than 50 years of work put together by Landon Saunders. On today's episode, we rejoin Landon in British Columbia, where he's been visiting with a group of professional service providers. And the topic today is, how do we summon joy? Once again, here's Landon.
Now, how do you live in joy? And what is the nature? What is the essence of this joy? Let's spend just a few moments distinguishing between joy and some words that are often associated with it, like pleasure. Sometimes we think that pain is the opposite of joy, but it isn't. The opposite of joy, is not pain. The opposite of pleasure might be pain. Now, when I think about joyfulness, the thing that I must move from my mind quickly is that this is not something that is the result of some other things that I do. That's not what joy is. Happiness can be that. Pleasure can be that. Pain can result from that, but that's not what joy is. You can't command happiness. You can't demand pleasure. But joy, oddly enough, when understood, is one of those things that can be summoned in any situation. That joy functions sometimes best in the midst of the tragic. Now, pleasure does not. But we're talking about something that is deeper than pleasure. We're talking about something that is deeper than happiness. We're talking about something that lies at the essence, at the core of what it means to be a human being. What is the stuff out of which human beings are finally really made? That's what we're asking. Now, if I construct my life in such a way that I am seeking to be joyful or I'm seeking to be happy through things or through persons, then I probably will never know joy. Because joy is getting along with other people, not because of what they do, but because of what they are. One of the reasons that I know that joyfulness is different from pleasure or pain, and that people finally are not really after merely the enjoyment of pleasure or the absence of pain, but they're really after joy, is this: that every single one of us, given the right person, would sacrifice any pleasure or endure any pain. Don't parents do that all the time? And don't some husbands do that all the time? Don't some wives do that? Now, if I construct these intimate relationships on the basis of bringing me pleasure or helping me to escape pain, then I promise you that either already is or will soon be a joyless relationship. That if you go after another individual as a means of enhancing your pleasure or somehow escaping your pain, I promise you it is either already or soon will be a joyless relationship. That's true of husbands and wives, children, parents. Because joyfulness is moving toward another individual because of what they are. I'm not going to say because we love them. Now, in the relationships that I just mentioned, that is it. That when love for another individual is great enough, won't you sacrifice anything for that? Now, joyfulness is getting to that place in our lives. The same thing with work. When an individual defines their relationship to their work in terms of what they're going to get out of their work, in terms of the pleasure that it might bring as a result of it, or the pain they might escape because of it, then that relationship with work is probably a joyless relationship. Why can't we as human beings enjoy things for what they are? Why can't we enjoy the people around us for what they are, not for what they do? And why can't we enjoy our work because of what we produce, and not because of any sort of side effects that may or may not be a spin-off from it? All of those things are wonderful, and they'll all fall into line. But when I make those things central, then, before I know it, I'm going to dread going to work. One of the greatest woodworker on the North American continent lives in Southern California. Makes a chair, carves a chair that will sell for anywhere from $15,000 to $25,000. His hands are big. His fingers are big. They're somewhat swollen and gnarled through years of working with wood. And when he puts his hand to a piece of wood, magic happens. And so here is this marvelous creator, this wonderful artist. And during a recent interview, he was asked, how do you do that? How did you get to be that way? And he would say, well, I try to be a good person. Well, now wait a minute. We're asking, how did you learn to carve like this? And he said, well, I try to be real good to my wife and good to my children. Let's get by all of that. The thing that we're asking you about is, how do you make these chairs so marvelous? And he said, well, I try to get up every day and enjoy life and have a good time. And he said, I just kind of try, and he used this expression, to aim myself true. That's an odd construction, isn't it? I try to aim myself true. And he said, I've discovered in all of my years of woodworking that how I feel, who I am, has most to do with what these hands create. Now, you see, I think that there's enormous truth and value in that. That when I must rethink my whole relationship to my work and rethink it in a way that I am finding some sort of inner relationship, some sort of inner joy. But a person says, but I hate my work. Then you have to quit your job. Because on the last day of your life, you're going to go out miserable. And that's not fair. You've got to quit. You say, well, that's easy to stand up there and say. No, but I'm dead serious. If you hate your work, you must begin right now to find different work. You can't do that. Either you have to change the way you view your work and find joy in it, or you got to shift. You say, well, we didn't really come this morning to find out that we got to change jobs. Well, but see, there's no one like that in this group. See, this is a group where I'm talking to people who know these things. I'm just reminding you of these things. I'm talking to people who are lined up right, that you're doing the work that you want to do. But seriously, we are talking about a way that every single one of us can bring delight to our work. We could ask of ourselves, am I in my work, in my profession? Am I fun to be with? Have you ever heard anybody say, you know, you can't be a good boss and be fun to be with? In other words, you can't be a good boss and stay in touch with what your central characteristic and goal of all life is? I don't believe that. Now, with success, what is the relationship to success? If my relationship with success somehow shifts to where I, almost an observer, am glad and proud that I'm successful, then my success will always be elusive, and I'll always be afraid that I'm going to lose it. Failure will dog my heels every day. But if, when I am successful, if I can find joy just in that fact, I'm successful. How many of you would stand right up before a group of your peers and say, I am good at what I do? I'm good at it. I was sitting, since I arrived in Vancouver, with a gentleman the other night who said, I'm very good at what I do. And you know, I believed it. I hadn't even called it into question yet. But do we go about our days? Do we rise in the morning? I'm good at what I do. And that I am inherently connected with the work that I will do this day. And I will take pleasure and I will find joy in the work that I produce this day for its own sake. Now, there's not anyone who would deny that that will increase the bottom line. William Blake said, energy is eternal delight. And where there is not delight, there's always going to be loss of energy. The student who hates to study, the person who hates to go to work, the person who hates to do whatever it is, whatever the activity is, will experience tremendous energy loss and probably, according to Bernie Siegel and others, is going to be more vulnerable to illness and to disease. We're not talking about something here that really is something on the shelf that can be selected if you want. We're talking right now about the core and essence of your life, that from which everything that you do and think springs. And so we're tearing at this, even though we may be in a hurry to get on to some other things. Because if we could do this today, if this one point could be made, really made, everything else would fall into place. Power is a terrible problem in the workplace. Power is a terrible problem in marriage. It's a terrible problem between parents and children. It's a terrible problem sometimes in friendship, is power. Because when power is used to get your way, nothing's very happy with that. There's not much joy in it. But when you see power as a way to produce that which is enjoyable to produce, then people can enjoy even the use of your power. It is when power is used at my expense that I hate it. And no human being has a right to exercise power at the expense of the humanity of another individual. That somehow what we're talking about here is basic decency, basic respect for each other. And when that's not there, everything else is play acting. Everything else is exploitation. Everything else is manipulation of other human beings for our own selfish ends. And just because your ends and goals may be virtuous does not give us the right to manipulate the people around us. Now, joy is the fulfillment of your personal center. That's what it is. Joy is the fulfillment of your personal center. And the word rejoice, or if you said be joyful, what that really means is penetrate what seems to be real to what's really real. That's what rejoice means. Rejoice means getting through the veneer. It means getting through the exteriors. It means getting through the manipulations and the tendencies to exploit others. It means getting through filling up our day with the activities of our work or the activities of our leisure to the heart of things themselves. That's what joy is. Joy is your inner, it is your inner essence. It is your inner being. It is what is inherent in what it means to be a human being.
What is inherent in what it means to be a human being. Wow. If you enjoyed today's episode, we encourage you to rate, review, and follow the podcast wherever you get your material. This helps as other individuals are looking for the same kinds of material. This podcast is made possible by friends of Heartbeat who invite you to visit the website thisisheartbeat.com. That's thisisheartbeat.com, where you'll find more information about Landon's work and other materials that are available. And until next time, this is Heartbeat, the podcast.